It trained, conditioned, built to disappear.
Diplomacy is the art or practice of conducting international relations. It is also the skill or cunning in dealing with people or nations.
Two intelligence superpowers during World War II and the Cold War were Great Britain and Russia. The two intelligence agencies in Great Britain were MI5 and MI6. MI5 was developed in 1916 with three fundamental purposes. The first, to protect national security against threats from terrorism, as well as the activities of foreign powers, and from the actions intended to overthrow parliamentary democracy by political, industrial, or violent means. The second, to safeguard the economic well-being of the United Kingdom against threats posed by the actions or intentions of persons outside the British Isles. And lastly, to act in support of the activities of police forces and other law enforcement agencies in the prevention and direction of serious crime. Stemming from a national political fear, MI5's initial purpose was to arrest offenders and complete covert operations in Germany and Russia. Over time, it has focused on countering threats against the British homeland.
While MI5 was primarily based in London as the home section of British security, MI6 dealt with overseas matters with the foreign section. Although MI6 has been technically active since the split of the Secret Service Bureau, MI6 was not officially recognized until 1992. Their concern was intercepting foreign intelligence for the United Kingdom through the Navy.
The Russian intelligence superpower was the KGB. Originally called Cheka, it went through a number of transitions before it was finally titled the KGB in 1954 under the command of Ivan Serov. The KGB was responsible for counterintelligence, foreign intelligence collection and analysis, and counterespionage. They were the protective force of the armed forces, state land, and the maritime borders. They had very specific and crucial duties for the controlling of nuclear weapons, communications for the national leadership, and providing provisions for the Kremlin guards. The KGB performed various functions, including ensuring loyalty and Soviet goodwill both within Russia and in foreign nations. The KGB stayed active in various aspects of life, including the lives of its constituents and the church. Essentially, the KGB served as a means to protect Russian political life through more radical tactics than the previously mentioned intelligence agencies. For example, they used intimidation, kidnapping, and in some cases murder to get what they wanted.
Spreading false information was a tactic that was of utmost importance to the intelligence agencies. For example, the KGB released misinformation about the Egyptian president Anwar Sadat in 1981. It was said that this information caused the president's assassination because he was accused of cooperating with Islamic terrorists. Afterwards, terrorism had a generally stronger presence in the Egyptian people's minds than it had before. This kind of manipulation of information continued during the Korean War when the KGB spread false information about the warfare tactics used by nations that were led by the United States. Supposedly, those nations were employing biological and chemical warfare against the people of North Korea. The effects of such misrepresentations are long-lasting. In this particular instance, North Korea has seen the Western world in a negative light for years. Both of these instances were successes for the KGB because the Egyptian president was removed permanently from his position of power and the attention of North Korea was shifted to the US and the rest of the Western world.
In the late 1950s, MI5 discovered several Soviet spies placed in positions of authority for the MI6 British intelligence agency. These young men had worked their way up to highly trusted ranks in the MI6 and other foreign offices after studying at Cambridge University. Led by Officer Yuri Modin, they released confidential information to the KGB in an effort to promote pro-communist ideals. Guy Burgess, Donald MacLean, Anthony Blunt, Harold Kim Philby, and John Cairncross were the five that were caught and arrested. In this case, the MI6 failed because their reputation for trusted agents was tarnished when the five men were captured. MI5, on the other hand, gained recognition as a reputable and capable organization with reliable agents. The most famous example of an agent working undercover for more than one organization is Colonel Oleg Penkovsky. Originally an agent for the KGB, he turned to British intelligence agencies when he found the Soviet intelligence to be subpar. He was instrumental in giving information to U.S. President John F. Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Eventually, he was caught by the KGB, charged with treason, and executed. Penkovsky was essentially a success for the British intelligence agencies and a failure for the KGB. His actions undermined the KGB's competence because one of their agents started working deliberately for the other side. The British intelligence succeeded because they were able to use a foreign agent for their benefit. One intelligence agency's failure is another agency's success.
The Red Orchestra was a major Soviet spy network located in Brussels, Belgium, and later moved to Paris, France. This was part of the Soviet Military Intelligence's 4th Department, which also set up missions in Japan and other parts of Europe that all reported to headquarters in Moscow. Led by Leopold Trepper, or Big Chief, it was damaged by the German intelligence agencies. Because they had poor technology, their radio reception was available for anyone to intercept. The Germans acquired important messages from Moscow that led them to identify key spies in the network. Not only did they attain the messages, but they were able to decode the cipher from the Brussels agency. Because of this, the Red Orchestra lost credibility and Stalin distrusted their sources. This was a failure for the Soviets because their information was known to be possibly tampered with. However, this later became a success for the Soviets. Leopold Trepper moved to France, became a trusted member of the German army, and then collected intelligence for Stalin. This connection informed Stalin of the plan to attack the Soviet Union, which led to a continuous transfer of information from the Germans to the Russians. Although Stalin never heeded Trepper's advice, Trepper became a notable figure because he deceived the Germans into believing that he was their agent.
One of the most recent and unheard of British intelligence branches, MI9, serves a more modern example of diplomacy, especially during the World War II era. It was created as a sub-department of the British military for several purposes. First, to facilitate the escapes of British prisoners of war, thereby getting back service personnel and containing additional enemy manpower on guard duties. To facilitate the return to the UK of those who succeeded in evading capture in enemy-occupied territory. To collect and distribute intelligence information. To assist in the denial of information to the enemy. And lastly, to maintain the morale of British prisoners of war in enemy camps. MI9 was the force behind developing methods of escape and evasion for over 600,000 servicemen who were part of the Allied force. By interrogating captured German officers and working with other allies who were in the prisoner of war camps, MI9 became an integral part of not only the British intelligence agencies, but also the Allied victory. This was a major success for the British intelligence agencies as it became the driving force behind the Allied war effort.
Through the use of MI5, MI6, MI9, and the KGB, Britain and Russia developed European diplomacy. The establishment of these agencies did not come without a string of failures, ranging from information being leaked to the wrong hands, political betrayal, damaged reputation, and success at the expense of other nations. Despite these obstacles, these services were able to create an extensive international ring of spies with agents in combat areas, and in the present day, in Washington, D.C. They pushed the existing boundaries for resources at the international level with the use of elaborate spy training networks and schools. These agencies strengthened and stabilized their respective nations. This allowed for improved relations with other countries, which was used for their benefit. They unified their nations through a common history and are prided in furthering their country diplomatically. The technologies in intelligence communications promoted the protections of the nations as a whole. Britain and Russia owe much of their modern dominance to the strength of their intelligence agencies during the mid to late 1900s.